Hello, folks. Time for another full edition of Ville on the Ville here on my YouTube channel. I want to thank you for tuning in this week. A little bit to talk about. Not going to be a real long show today. Just want to touch on the games that happened this past week, look ahead a little bit, touch on a few other things, look at the ACC standings. First, going to go back to the game the men had against Miami. Frustrating loss to the Hurricanes. I don't want to say disappointing because I don't think many expected them to win. But the fact that they were so close down the stretch to getting that win in a game that really would have helped them out in the standings in the ACC, seemed to have it right in their hands, and just to not make those plays late, give up second chances. As I talked to my quick take, it really boiled down to three things: second chance opportunities, a few too many challenge shots. Dang took his share, yes, but there were a few other guys took shots not at the best time, or maybe Ryan McMahon late, had the ball in the corner, and again, he's catching that ball. He knows the clock is ticking, but there was plenty of time there to pump fake, and he would have had a great look, or even could have driven to the basket maybe, because it was only a 2-point game. But situationally, hopefully that will help them in the future realize, when they're in that situation again, to make the right decision, whether it's, not taking a bad shot, or whether it's, getting a body on a guy, not giving up a second chance point or a second chance opportunity to your opponent. Now, the one thing that they can always control, and really was, to me, the root of the loss, was free throws. That was that third cog. Challenge shots, second chance opportunities, and free throws. In regulation, that game would have been over if the Cardinals could have just even come close to their season percentage of 75. They shot sub 60. In regulation, Miami went, I think, 81%, even shot more free throws. So that was a pivotal part of that game going into overtime. Anytime you go into overtime and you've shot poorly at the line and your opponent has gone way above their average, that is a huge reason as to why you're playing 5 extra minutes. And it wasn't like Anas Mahmoud was spending all evening at the line. He was actually one of the better free throw shooters at 3 of 4 on the night. It was guys like Dang Ray Spalding, who has done better. I mean, he's never been a great free throw shooter, but he's been improved this year. And I think he really struggled. 1 of 5 at the free throw line. Yeah, so just one other guy hits, 1 or 2 shots more at the free throw line. They're winning that game in regulation. So many things that really just allowed Miami to win that. It seemed like it was almost a game of destiny for the Hurricanes, because so many things had to happen just for them to get into overtime. And gosh, if they didn't. So you give them credit. They made the plays they had to make, shot free throws very well, and they got the win over Louisville. But it's not a devastating loss for the Cardinals. Hopefully they can take lessons learned. Jeff Guru had an article discussing this game and how he got a sense of this. They took this loss a little different than they had losses before. And I can totally understand that, because listening to him talk, you get the sense that they know they gave that one away. And before they got that win at Florida State, Notre Dame, when they had lost games close, it was more of a why can't we? And now in this game against Miami, we know why we didn't win that game, and we should have. So hopefully moving forward, they'll improve in closing situations, make those plays down the stretch. Anas Mahmoud, a pretty good game, 15 points, 5 rebounds, 4 more blocks. Dang took some challenge shots late, but at the same time, I think he was trying to make a play. He also had some great moves, got into the post. He does a great job of getting in when he does get a drive, doing that little step-back shot that he's really good at hitting. He had a couple of those as well. Quentin Snyder, big second half, really was a reason they were put in a position. Had a great pass. One of my favorite plays in the game is when Anas Mahmoud came out high to set a screen, and Quentin waved him off. And right as he did, Quentin made a drive and then found Anas for that alley-oop. It was a really good awareness by Quentin Snyder to get that to Anas. But not a terrible loss, so we'll see moving forward if they can bounce back this weekend against Wake Forest. Now, the women, they were able to get the win over Miami. Asia Dorr struggled again, only 7 points, only 1 field goal. So now, as I said in my quick take, the last 3 games since that great 36-point outburst against Notre Dame, she's only gone for a total of 27 points in the 3 games since then, only hit for double digits once. So in a little bit of a funk. Now, who's not in a funk is Maisha Hines-Allen. She's been fantastic. She's had a double-double in just about every game, getting the points and the rebounds consistently. So this Louisville team moving forward, if they want to be great, if they want to challenge UConn, they need Asia Durr to shake free of this little mini funk she's in. So hopefully we'll see that this weekend as the women come back home to also take on Wake Forest this weekend in the Yum Center. Taking a look at the standings in the ACC, we'll take a look at the men first. As you can see, Virginia at the top, 2 games up on everybody. That loss to Miami really hurt the Cardinals as they dropped down below Duke, 1 game back in the win column. They can catch them if the win over Wake Forest. Now, what's huge now is this weekend, really, and we'll see in the women's side as well, 2 big games with teams at the top of the conference. Virginia and Duke square off this weekend at Duke. So that's going to be huge. Now, who do we want to win that game? The more I think about it, the more I'd rather just see Virginia win it, give Duke a 3rd loss, because I think that makes it that much more difficult for Duke to get back to the top. But Virginia is Virginia. It seems like, I don't know if there's another game on the schedule there that they're not going to be favored in, but this game at Duke is one of them. So if they can get the win, who knows what they might do in terms of moving forward. And then again, if Duke beats Virginia and then Virginia turns around and plays Louisville next week, do you want Virginia off a loss? It's bad enough playing Virginia anytime, any place, but going to their place off their first conference loss, probably a recipe for disaster if you ask me. So I think I'd just rather see Virginia get the upset win at Duke, knock them off, give them a 3rd loss, and then let's see what happens when the Cardinals go into Charlottesville next week. On the women's side, it's Louisville still at the top. Now, the difference here, as I said, there's a big matchup. You've got Notre Dame and Florida State on the women's side playing this weekend. And if we want to look into who we want to win that, obviously, everyone used to the logjam, 4 teams with 1 loss. Florida State a half game back. Notre Dame and Florida State, if Notre Dame wins that pushes Florida State down below Virginia, Notre Dame, and Louisville. Louisville still has a game against Virginia, so they can settle it there, and then that would give them the advantage, the tiebreaker already over Notre Dame. So, and then Louisville plays at Virginia, the women, in the middle of the week. So if Notre Dame can get the win over Florida State, and then Louisville women can beat Wake Forest, then beat Virginia, that'll put them alone at the top with a tiebreaker over Notre Dame moving forward. So pivotal games this weekend, both on the men's and women's side in conference in the ACC moving forward. Now, as I already said, looking ahead, they both play Wake Forest, the men's Saturday night, the women's Sunday afternoon. Then they both travel to Virginia for midweek games. Kind of an interesting stretch here. This will be 3 games in a row where they're all playing the same opponent in the same spot. They both play Miami. Now they both play Wake Forest. Then they go to Virginia. I like that scheduling, and I wonder why conferences don't do more of that. You think that might even help with travel costs? Although Louisville, when they went to Miami, they traveled separately, so maybe it doesn't really even matter. But just in terms of scheduling, you think more conferences would do that as much as possible because it just makes it easier versus trying to schedule all around different teams and different places at different times. So that's the week ahead for the men and women. The other thing is the appeal news. Still waiting to hear. We keep thinking it's coming, and it just keeps getting, I don't want to say it's getting put off because we weren't given a date. I think there's just been a lot of assumption out there. I think most people assumed January was going to be when it came down. It may have already been determined, and they're just waiting to get the written stuff out to the parties that need to have them before releasing it publicly. So we will see. My stance hasn't changed, and I hope yours hasn't either. I'm just saying expect the worst and hope for the best. I don't expect anything to change, unfortunately. Again, after what the NCAA, suffered, the reputation, the hit that they took after the North Carolina thing, even though they had their little loophole that they don't get involved in the academic side, I think the NCAA definitely doesn't want to take another hit. If they're going to use somebody as an example, they're going to do that. And I think, once again, Louisville's just wrong place, wrong time. I don't think they're going to get much leeway. You never know until the actual ruling comes down, but we'll see when that does, and then I'll react to that in full when we actually get the ruling, whether that's next week on a full episode or after that. Just depends on how long this is going to take to stretch out. Now, in regards to the appeal news, something did happen this week. Dan Dockich decided for whatever reason, just to randomly, say that he was going to break big news on his radio show in Indianapolis. And when he did, he initially sent out a tweet and said, "It's coming, Louisville, it's coming." He sends this out, then he says, "I'm breaking news on my show at noon today." And then noon rolled around. He wasn't there. He didn't break the news. And then I guess people started tweeting at him. And then there was this whole back and forth developed. And it got ugly. It got nasty. It went so far as Dan Dockich accusing ESPN Radio here in Louisville of taking shots at his family. He was reading people's Twitter accounts, and it was just really bad radio, to be quite honest. Just making fun of people, mispronouncing their name because apparently that's funny. But you get the sense from Dan Dockich, I don't know if there's some deep-rooted insecurity issues or what, but the guy just can't help himself. He does really good basketball when he sticks to it, but he just can't stick to that. And I guess it's because he knows that if he does things like this, he gets attention. So my advice here, don't feed the Dockich troll. Just leave him alone. The one thing I would advise is, if you're a Louisville fan, tweet Vince Tyree, email Vince Tyree, and say, "You know what? I would like it if Dan Dockich didn't make any more money coming here to Louisville to broadcast or do analysis of basketball games." Because some of the things he said on his show that has no association with ESPN, mind you, was pretty nasty, and it painted with a very broad brush the program, the fans, the university. And I just don't feel like it's right that he should be able to come down here, broadcast games, and make a pretty good paycheck doing so. So I would encourage you. I did it. I would encourage you to do the same. That's probably the best thing that we can do as Louisville fans, to just let Dan Dockich know that, you can do whatever you want, but we're not going to let you come down here and bring that attitude here to Louisville and make money off of it, because you just can't have it both ways. You can't bash a program and then turn around and come down here and make money off it at the same time. So that will be my advice as far as that goes. Couple things to wrap up here at the end. Some terrible news broke today. Eric Wood, one of the best offensive linemen to ever play for the University of Louisville, said he suffered a neck injury was the initial word. I'm like, well, that doesn't make a lot of sense, because the last time I saw him play, he was perfectly fine, and Buffalo lost in the playoffs. But it was in a postseason physical that the players go through. They found a neck injury that was not going to be repairable and ended his career. So the career of Eric Wood comes to an end. One of the best centers in the NFL, and of course one of the best ever to play here at the University of Louisville. So all the best to him. I know he just had a new baby boy. So hopefully that'll help, take his mind off the fact that he received that very disappointing news. But all the best goes out to Eric Wood and his family moving forward. And also the tragedy at Marshall County this past week, that sort of thing really puts everything into perspective for everybody. It was really neat to see David Padgett reach out to the family of one of the youngsters who was killed, Bailey, who was a big Louisville fan. I think their whole family was Louisville fans, even though they were there in Western Kentucky. He reached out to him with a video to support them, and that was just a really cool thing. And so everybody's thoughts and prayers should go out to them and everybody affected by that, because it was just a really, really bad thing. You never want to see that. So it's good to see that Louisville and Coach Padgett doing things to support them. So all the best to them moving forward. Until next time, I'm going to wrap it up now. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Until next time on Ville on the Ville, this is Troy Turbyville. As always, go Cards.